What is up, mages of World of Warcraft? I am here on my mage and I'm gonna explain everything you need to know about the changes in the new patch, semi-new Fury of Hellfire 6.2. So, first off, let's go to the arcane. I need to respec. This is wonderfully planned. So, arcane, we get some set bonuses. If you can just re-equip. There we go. So, first off, 2-piece. You have a chance upon casting Arcane Missile to summon a random familiar hero through time and space. It's Arthas and Jaina and Sylvanas and Hirande. Sylvanas' sister. Yeah, they do some damage and they're pretty good. And please note, they can only be summoned on the initial cast. So it's not per missile, it's on cast. I need to get this buff up. There we go. Okay, so yeah, this procs on cast, and it kind of scales with haste. Our new base main stat is haste, and I am doing a terrible job at getting some haste. But our main stat is currently haste, mainly because of the set bonus, but there's also some other things involving this. So, haste, it makes you cast faster, get more procs, get more assistance from these guys. So, the faucet. There we go. It is, whenever they're summoned, you get 12% damage increased. Well, the damage you deal is increased. Excuse me. So, this also makes haste a pretty valuable stat. Because the more spells you can get out in this 10 seconds period of 12% damage increase, the more you benefit from this. Also, these guys, they do some damage, and they have some basic attacks. Now, they're very finkly, weird way of doing damage, because Jaina has a Frostbolt that takes 3 seconds to cast, and the other have 2-second attacks, shoot, and Arthas does some melee. And it scales weird with haste, and they have some intervals between the attacks. It's all very complicated, and I don't get it either. What you need to know is you need to stack haste. You need to, I think the breakpoint is around 1200 haste for them to theoretically do one extra attack than they do normally. But you need to stack as much haste as you can. You actually need to get about 2100 is soft cap and 2600 is the hard cap. So you need to get that, and I need to get that too, but I'm still spec the old way because I haven't really played Arcane that much this patch. So next off is the class trinket. This does that when we cast Arcane Power and when it's active, our Arcane Blasts has decreased cast time and decreased global cooldown, so we can spam them even more. And this is awesome for unloading on the crystal and basically getting down to your evocation point. Now, if you should never cast evocation while you have arcane power on, and you might get down to like 30%, 20% mana, and this is cool because you'll just, channel evocation for a bit longer. It's alright. It's a damage increase overall. And next off is a wonderful trinket here, Prophecy of Fear. Now, this will, on spell damage, sometimes apply a Mark of Doom on your target, making every single damage you deal to that target explode. And there's a little trick where arcane mages, we can, of course, because we're mages, we do damage, we want to do damage, so we can cheese this a lot. Because, as you might know, arcane missiles, yes, the 2-piece only triggers on the initial cast, but actually Arcane Missile counts as 5 separate spellcasts. Because it's 5 missiles it shoots off. So each individual missile will activate the Mark of Doom from the Prophecy of Fear trinket. This makes Arcane Missile trigger 5 explosions per cast. And I actually have a video of this to show you. So video ready and go. So first off, I'm trying to get the mark to apply. So as you can see, that's the mark, and then we go with arcane missiles. Now, if you look at the top left corner, you can see my Doom Nova. That's the Mark of Doom damage. You can see how I had 45 triggers of that just from the missiles. Now, next clip here, I get the mark on the target. There we go. And then I do a crystal just to check if it triggers from the crystal explosion on other targets. Now, you can see Doom Nova 3 explosions. That's boring, and I shot a missile. So it definitely does not trigger from the explosion of your crystal. Now, however, it does trigger from unstable magic, the talent. Now here I get the mark on the crystal just to check if it explodes when it's on the crystal, and as you can see, the Doom Nova count is pretty high, 33, 35. Yeah, so it does explode on your crystal. Last off, I'm gonna check if if the Mark of Doom will explode from supernova. So as you see, now it's of course not as much damage, but you see the Doom Nova is up at 5, and it does indeed trigger from your supernova explosions. So that's it for the video. Get rid of that. And next up is haste. Yeah, main stat haste. I already explained. I fidgeted with my notes. So, talents coming up. Get to the right spec. So, as you might remember, I mentioned something about unstable magic. This is the main talent, basically now. And the reason for this is more haste equals more cast of Arcane Blast. It only triggers from Arcane Blast. Equals more damage from it. On top of that, you will also have, of course, the class trinket that increases the amount of Arcane Blast you can cast in the little time span of your arcane power. So it just increases the amount of unstable magic explosions you can theoretically get. So this is very good. For the next tier, mirror images has never been good for arcane because our mastery does not increase the mirror image's damage, as well as mastery does not increase the damage from the timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly guys we summon here, Arthurs and the kind. So that's why haste is better to increase the actual casts of damaging spells than mastery for this. Last of is crystal. Now, crystal changes a bit because of the Prophecy of Fear trinket. This one with the Mark of Doom. Because if you get the Mark of Doom on your target, main target, the boss, whatever, you don't want to cast a crystal, because as I just showed you, the crystal explosion doesn't trigger the Mark of Doom explosion. And it would be crazy if it did, because the Mark of Doom explosion triggers an explosion from the crystal, so that would just be a paradox. Or a loop, code loop. Yeah, crash game, not good. So what you need to do, of course, it's not really worth using Arcane Blast for the explosions, because if it was, we would use the trinket as main on Frost, and I'll begin into that later, but the trinket is not the best as Frost. So that's not good. We want to unload all the Arcane Blasts with the increased class trinket time from Arcane Power and the such into the crystal, because that'll deal the optimal amount of damage. But if you have the mark on the boss and you get to 3 Arcane Missile procs, you should unload them into the boss to get the explosion to hit the crystal to hit the boss again. Yeah. So sorry about that. So blast to crystal, but missiles to whatever have the Prophecy of Fear Mark of Doom mark debuff thing, as long as they'll hit the crystal. So if you're lucky enough and get the mark on the crystal, you just unload missiles. And also, if you have the mark up on any target arcane missiles on that target prioritized over everything. Literally everything. You have 0 arcane charges, and you have 3 missile charges, or even 1, and you have the Mark of Doom on the target. Missiles, because it's so much damage. It's a lot of damage, and it's really awesome. Also, when you pull, you can shoot between 2 and 4 blasts before you place your crystal. I tend to shoot 4, because I have miles over macro on my missiles, and I have the boss frames, so if the boss get the Mark of Doom thing, I can just, you know, press my missiles on the target that has it instead of it going to the crystal. Now you might play differently. You can shoot 2 blasts on the boss and then place down a crystal to make sure to get the mark on the crystal, which is also good tactic, but yeah, you can kind of decide yourself. You can also do 3 blasts before you place the crystal, according to, well, how the fight is and stuff. I know in Chromog, you should definitely not place the crystal after 3 blasts. You should, I think it's 6 blasts and something, yeah. But that's really not the topic. So, last off, overpower. Not really viable. Not really viable, and the reason is you don't need arcane power for longer than the 15 seconds. Oh yeah, you definitely should not use this glyph, because the class trinket is, yeah, class trinket, a lot of casts and you'll go before it's over. You go at like 20 seconds into the arcane power. Not good. So we don't want to extend the arcane power buff at all. And Arcane Orb, it's semi-viable. If there's a lot of ads in waves like on Manorath, you can shoot it through the imps. That's really good, because then you'll get more missile procs and such. Excuse me for a second while I take a drink. Wonderful. So, now, last off for Arcane. Legendary Ring. When do we use it? Well, we don't. But you should have someone in the raid use it, preferably melee. And you should save your cooldowns such as Crystal and Arcane Power for it. Unless, of course, there's some burst needed at 1.5 minutes or 3 minutes. But generally, save the Crystal and the Overpower for it. Now, because of this, I tend to like using the Orb more. Because the Orb, it's like, hey, it's up for every ring, or if it's not, I can just use it. But then again, you shouldn't really have to use it, because you're bursting. But I tend to go with Orb most of the time, because the ring stacks at 2 minutes, and the Crystal and your Arcane Power does not stack up with it. Yeah. So that's what I usually go with. Now for Frost, because that's a wonderful and legit spec too. Let's change spec and go over there and check out the 2 set first. And this is the 2 set. Now, you can get I do not remember what it is. 1 second while I read it. Water jet generates a freezing brain freeze when used. So this is initial uncast thing. Well, on complete count. When the guy here starts channeling, you can see here, cast is going, and now I get it. Yeah, it's down here because I remade my UI. So this also makes Frost Firebolt deal 20% bonus damage, and this basically just bumps up. Stop attacking, pet. This basically just bumps up your priority on Brain Freeze pretty high. Still don't cast it if you have maxed Fingers of Frost procs. You should wait until you have 2 free Fingers of Frost spots. And the reason I don't say when you have 0 left is because of the next bonus, the 4 set, which increases the duration of Water Jet by 4 seconds. As you just saw, my Water Jet was pretty long, and also increase the total of Fingers of Frost stacks you can have by 2. So, when you have 2 or less stacks, you use Brain Freeze. No, you use Frost Firebolt with Brain Freeze, only with Brain Freeze. Now what this does is that you get a lot more ice lance procs. You can see if I just try to pull here, and of course the trinket procs. Now I haven't gotten the other one, so you can see that it's still going, it's still going, it's still going. I'm wasting procs here, and it's still going, and it's like 12.4 seconds. There we go. Done with that, and now I have all the procs in the world. Let's get out of combat. So basically, yeah, it's a longer water jet. You need to weave in and out. You need to cast ice lands between your frost bolts. You need to make sure not to stack brain freeze, because if you have two, you should cast one. Obviously, you should not waste frost firebolt brain freeze procs at all. Avoid that. Never do that. If you do that, you're missing out on damage, and that's bad. Next up, class trinket. This makes your ice lands deal 100% or more, or less if you have the normal or the mythic version. I have the heroic here. It makes it deal 108% more damage, and that is very, very good. So what you need to do is if we can just generate some, you need to like cast Frostbolt and then Ice Lance and then Frostbolt and this Ice Lance, and usually Frostfire Bolt in there too. And with Water Jet being so long, you actually need to like try to stack them up at the end. I forgot to mention that. And you see, this will make you gain a lot of Ice Lance procs. Even now my my Water Jet is off cooldown, and I still had 2 charges. Then we just cast again. So you got this rotation where you stack up to 4. I just cast and get. I usually do it with 3 actually, because I might get one from somewhere else. And then you just weave them in and out. And you can see they're doing a lot of damage. I can actually pull this up here, get out of combat again, and say Ice Lance. Oh, come back to me. There we go. Ice Lance, it dealt 45k, 41k on average per hit, and a lot of crits too, because of course it gets your passive over here, frozen shatter. Yeah, the extra crit. So you'll be critting most of the time, and 81k per Ice Lance. That's pretty good damage. So next up we have, oh yeah, last thing, need to remind you with this one. If you would get a Fingers of Frost proc and you don't have spot for it, it's not worth doing the doing the Frostbolt Ice Lance weaving, because you only get so many procs and you need to use them all. It's not worth wasting a proc if you're trying to weave them in Ice Lance weaving. Excuse me. So next off, this trinket, Prophecy of Fear. It is not the best for this spec, because we don't have a way to cheese it like we could with Arcane Blasts. No, Arcane Missiles. So it will be this until you get the Tome of Shifting Words. But because of the weaving, you can no longer, when you get this, spam your Ice Lance and your Frostfire Bolt procs into this, which you should be doing. So it loses its value there. What you want to get instead is the Iskar trinket that is really boring. Doesn't have any gameplay changing thing. It's just a beam on random spells through the target. You might have to position a bit, but yeah, get it and replace Prophecy of Fear with that. That'll be better. And for our stats, you wanna go for Mastery and you wanna go for Multi-Strike. Now, the reason Mastery is actually better for Frost, if you are playing Arcane, of course. If you're playing Arcane on the single target fights, you should really go for Mastery more, because you have this wonderful little glyph called Glyph of Splitting Ice, which makes you Ice Lance and Icicles hit 1 additional target. Now, please remember, Remember coughing, that's good. Please remember that your Ice Lance makes your icicles go to specific targets. But it does not... Well, your Ice Lance triggers your icicles, so any icicles left over when you cast an Ice Lance will go to the targets hit by Ice Lance. But it does not... It is not required to cast an Ice Lance for your icicles to split to 2 targets. They do that automatically, whether you cast an Ice Lance or not. Keep that in mind, because, yeah, I've heard people say that, well, they needed to cast an Ice Lance in between every 2 spells to get the icicles to go to the right targets if they multi-strike and such, and keeping an eye on icicles. Ignore the icicles. Icicles, of course, are from your mastery, capturing a percentage of your spell damage and their multi-strikes. But ignore the icicles completely. I was about to say fuldstændig, that's Danish. Ignore them completely. You don't need to care about them, you should just ignore them, they'll do their thing. It's passive damage, it's really good. Except if the tanks are splitting up targets that should be stacked. Then you should shout at them. And of course, I don't say go full mastery, I don't say go full multi-strike. If you want exact numbers, go to a guide on MMO Champion for scaling, or ask Mr. Robot, make them complete your character, tell you what to do, or simcraft it if you want the exact scaling values for your specific character. This is just general. If it has multi-strike, good for you. If it had master, good for you. If it had both, biz. Complete biz. Yeah, so next up, talent. We have a lot of wonderful talents. Oh yeah, you should get this glyph, but that's not really specific for the new patch. So, yeah. Unstable magic, again, this is really good. This is really, really good. Both because, hey, you'll be icicle weaving. No, not icicle weaving, you'll be lance weaving. With the frostbolt, and then ice lance and frostbolt and ice lance because of the class trinket, which will make you cast more frostbolts in between your other spells. On bonus of that, on top of that, you also have this triggering from Frost Firebolt. Now, read this and see that it does additional damage based on the spell. Frost Firebolt, if you remember, right here. Increase damage of Frost Firebolt by 20%. This will go directly to unstable magic and increase it a lot. A whole lot. So, Ice Bomb, Frost Bomb is not viable because you'll have to lance weave. So, if you don't have the class trinket, it's somewhat viable, but don't do it. Excuse my coughing. It's really annoying. 1 second. I'll get some water. There we go. So, Incanter's Flow, Rune of Power, whatever you prefer, whatever fits the fight. Don't go for mirror images, they're not really doing that much damage anymore. Last off, Thermal Void. You might think this is not as good because we have to lance weave, but it's really good actually. It's probably the best one here. Also because, hey, it increases your multi-strikes, you'll get more Ice Lance procs, Finger Frost, and therefore you'll do more cleaving with those. Comet Storm, it will trigger your... No, not that one. This one. It will trigger the Mark of Doom 7 times because it calls down 7 comets. But then again, you shouldn't really be rolling with the trinket. The only reason I have it is because I haven't gotten the Ishka one. Because my raid leader thing, the loot council, is... They hate me for some reason. But it's... Yeah, don't really use Comet Storm. It's never been really viable at all. And Crystal... Crystal is fidgety and it won't time with your water jet because timing and it... it's a mess. Don't go for the crystal. That's mostly for single target, and if you're going single target, you'll be going arcane. Yeah, so just don't. And for cooldowns, no, for the legendary ring. Yeah, and cooldowns. you don't want to wait with icy veins for the legendary ring thingy. But you should aim to have frozen orb up for each ring, which won't be that hard. And preferably cast the frozen orb one global cooldown or one cast, whatever it is, before the ring get popped, so that you get frozen orbs damage, but you don't have to waste a global cooldown while the ring is up to cast it. The same thing that you do if you're using the crystal. Oh yeah, and when you have the legendary ring buff, you should get a weak aura for it. If you don't, but when you have it up, you should aim at getting as many frostfire bolts up as possible. And also water jet will increase the damage. No, it will, yeah. The ring interacts with water jet. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it, and good luck out there playing a mage. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.